All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ricky Telg at the University of Florida, and it is my pleasure to welcome everybody here to the October Society of Agricultural Communication Scholars webinar. Today we have with us a panel led by Kelsey Hall at Utah State University. Typically, our webinars take about an hour total time. In this case, with the panel, they'll be discussing the topic that I'll mention in just a second. At the end, if there's time allowing, we will also have an opportunity for us to kind of talk among ourselves if there are updates at our universities, such as positions that are open, any announcements of upcoming conferences and that type of thing. So that will be at the end. As we typically do, we really allow the panelists or the presenters to say how they would like to have questions, whether it's at the end of the presentation or during the presentation. So I'll leave that to Kelsey and the panelists today. And so with no other ado, I'll turn it over to Kelsey. The topic today is trends and needs of graduates entering agricultural communication careers. So Kelsey, take it away.
Thank you so much. I wanted to have something perhaps different for one of our webinars, and that we invite industry experts to come and talk to us today. As a program director, I value the input of professionals in the industry. And I certainly go to my advisory board and contacts in the industry for feedback on curriculum, ways that we can be training our students, how to be projecting, 10 years from now, how we need to be teaching in the classroom and in mentoring our students for careers in agricultural communications. So I wanted to invite Courtney Gerges, who is the owner of Rooted Communications, David Jones, Senior Content Specialist at Beta Rudder, Corinne LaRue, a farm broadcaster and content specialist at American Ag Network, and Holly Martin, the Director of Communications at the American Angus Association today, so that we have some representation from across our industry, but also years of experience and backgrounds, so that we can perhaps take this information back to us. And without further ado, I wanted to start by just asking each one of them to quickly introduce themselves, tell a little bit about their background, and then I have a few questions, but I would love to have anyone who has a question as they're talking be able to add it to the chat, and I'll be monitoring that chat so that I can be asking your questions throughout the presentation and not have to have you wait till the end to ask something. So who might want to go first? David, would you like to lead us?
Sure. No, Professor Hall, thank you very much. And thank you for having us. My name is David Jones. I am based out of Middle Tennessee, the little town of Winchester in Franklin County. I am a 32-year veteran of agricultural communications. I started with trade publications in my hometown of Memphis, moved on to the agency world, graduated perhaps to the marketing communications department at John Deere, where I spent the bulk of my career, and retired from John Deere in 2020. And now I'm a content creator with Beta Rudder out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So thank you again for having us.
Courtney, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's really great to be here and to see all the faces and the names. You see a lot of your names on email, so it's nice to kind of be in a place together. I'm Courtney Gerges. I graduated from the University of Missouri back in 2015, science and ag journalism, and I started my career at was then the Noble Foundation. Now it's the Noble Research Institute as their writer and copy editor, and was there for a little over 7 years, and then branched out on my own as a freelance writer. And I work for a lot. Successful Farming is one of the people, and then other nonprofits focused on agriculture and farmers. And I'm also the co-chair of the Ag Communicators Network's Future Ag Communicators. So you probably see a lot from my group about different opportunities that we have for your students. And as preparation for part of this, since I don't actually hire students, or interns. I've asked a lot of some people for their feedback on some of these different questions that you all have. So hopefully I can help kind of bridge that world for you a little bit today.
And Holly, would you also introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Holly Martin. As you said, a director of communications at the American Angus Association. I've been there for 5 years now. In a previous life, I was the editor and publisher of High Plains Journal for 26 years. So did a change a few years ago and have really loved it. Loved my career at High Plains Journal, where we were covering the Midwest, agriculture, all kinds of agriculture, and now switching over specifically to livestock and more of the marketing communication side. We have lots of communications professionals at Angus, from certified Angus beef to producer communications to our magazines and podcasts and all those things. So we get the great fortune to work with several interns every summer, and have hired several straight out of college and that kind of thing. So this is going to be fun.
And then Corinne LaRue, would you introduce yourself?
Rookie mistake there. I was muted. As Dr. Hall introduced me, my name is Corinne LaRue. I actually am from Templeton, California, small town in Central Coast, California, big ag community, and I went to Utah State University. And so I did major in ag communications and journalism, and actually studied under Dr. Hall. And so it's great to be here and great to be able to kind of meet on a level where I can actually, I guess, be a little bit better on an even playing field a little bit here. But I went to Utah State, graduated, and started doing DC policy ag communications coverage as a farm broadcaster with RFD TV up until the pandemic. And then, of course, all of that kind of messed everything up for everybody. So I ended up moving home back to California, started on actually working for the state of California as a videographer. And so I actually was removed from the ag space for a little bit there. Immediately got back into ag broadcasting part-time. I was hosting California Ag Today. Couldn't really stay away from it. But of course, the pandemic, it was so secure for me to be able to stay with the state. And so I was actually doing two jobs at once there. But I actually recently just joined on with the American Ag Network as a farm broadcaster. And I host American Ag Network, or American Ag Today, which is the podcast I handle there. And yeah, I've been able to luckily have the opportunity to, as a leader, be able to bring on a couple interns just when I was at RFD TV, and also with the state as well. And so I kind of have both inside ag and outside ag, and was able to kind of look at both of those industries and those worlds simultaneously together. And so I'm excited to be here and share my input. So thank you.
Thank you all so much. I wanted to just start off with one question that you guys can take turns, or if all of you want to answer, that'd be really great. But what are emerging trends or technologies in agricultural communications that we should incorporate into our curriculum to better prepare students for the future? And
I don't know
I
about
can
it.
jump on. Oh, okay. Go ahead, David.
No, please go right ahead.
Okay. Well, I can jump in and say I'm the gearhead of my group. Practically any, conversation that I walk into, I am like the techie one. I'm such a nerd about the actual gear when it comes to utilizing cameras or audio equipment. I mean, obviously emerging trends in podcasting and that digital online content creation. It's changed. The space isn't just, we want to hear things audibly, and it has to be good enough for us to hear, and we want to see things visually, and it has to be good enough for us to understand. Whereas, now it is kind of trending more towards the trade-in for the higher resolution, higher quality, production value everywhere across the space. And so, first and foremost, when it comes to just being able to be a jack of all trades and walk in to a, if they're going into ag communications directly into like a network, for instance, I went directly into ag reporting. I had the biggest thing that I was able to kind of push off of for my foundation is the knowledge I had for gear and the knowledge I had for cameras and how, audio is supposed to be and all of these things that I was able to then research more and build that off of. And so kind of just want to throw that in there. Obviously, new cameras and content creation, it's getting a lot easier for an individual to be able to have a relatively high production value package to deliver, and they don't need, a ton of big assistance from large companies or outside editing companies and stuff like that. And so I think moving forward, trying to implement at least, some basic knowledge of how, even terminology translates over, I think that would be really helpful.
Professor Hall, one of the things that I would say, I would probably go a little bit in a little bit of a different direction with that question, and talk about cultural trends. I think that impact us just as communicators, and one of those cultural trends that I see is, frankly, audience skepticism towards really any institutional communications, especially any governmental communications. And I wish I had a good answer for for how to combat that. But it's something that's definitely here, and that we as communicators definitely have to deal with.
I'll probably take it in a completely different direction. My thoughts went to dealing with AI, and then also so many of the changes that are happening with technology. So where does AI start? Where does it end? How do we use it as communicators to be a tool? It's not going away, right? We know that. And what I guess what guidelines should we have? How should we embrace the technology, but also then know that we have ethical standards and things that we have to follow. And along those lines, I guess I would also say photo editing, I think, is something that our shop is really struggling with right now. And we hope to have a session at NCBA at livestock photography is big in our world, and how much can you retouch a photo, and how much should you not retouch a photo, and things like that. And I feel like a lot of my ethical standards came from my education at K-State, and so I want to be sure that we as a team are following those, and if students come on, it feels like one of the things I enjoy about hiring young people is that they have new skills and are able to bring a new skill set to the team that frankly I wasn't trained in. That I'm showing my age, but there was no internet when I was in school. So we've had to continue to learn, and most of that happens through, or a lot of it happens through, hiring new young people.
AI is also the first thing that came to my mind. It seems like every conference we go to now, there's a session on artificial intelligence and how to use it and what are the ethical uses of it. And maybe on the writing side of it, just, students should be aware that as organizations decide how they're going to handle AI, like you may need to, I sign contracts that say that I'm not going to use AI, or what is the appropriate use of AI, and also about the inaccuracies that AI can introduce. I've noticed lately when you Google something, the top thing is AI generated, but I've noticed sometimes there's inaccuracies in that. So, as you're doing research, don't depend on AI, and make sure you fact checked and just adhere to those basic principles of journalism and you know what is good, truthful communication.
Thank you. For our next question, I'm going to take one from our audience. So how can we better integrate you, meaning professionals in the industry, and your knowledge into our classroom beyond being guest speakers?
I love this question, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do a shameless plug for our Speakers Bureau, which I know you said in addition to speaking to classes, but I hope that you can still use that list. These people are really interested in mentoring students. You know, maybe this is your first line of, you have a particular question for a professional, or you want to leverage a certain expertise. You know, maybe you start with that person on the list, and then maybe they introduce you to someone else, and it's just, you know, that networking building sort of thing. And yeah, I'll put this in the chat here.
I'll say I kind of agree with that as well. Like the networking thing is as valuable to me as it should be to them, right? And our last graduate, I met her at Ag Media Summit. She's an ACT student. I knew her through some I spoke to the K-State class. She came and talked to me afterwards. I think those things are super valuable beyond just being able to speak to a class, which is great. I love doing it and I do it a lot. But I think that being able to like hop in and do something specific about it, mentoring a project or whatever, is also a great opportunity. But encouraging your kids to come to an ACT convention or with Ag Media Summit and getting in front of professionals, I think is super valuable.
To kind of jump off of what Courtney and Holly both are saying, not only mentorship, but just the in-person experience. Now, when I was in college, I'll just give you a little background. I did 10 internships in the 4 years, and I at one point there was a semester I was doing 3 at a time. Now, this was an amazing opportunity when I was there because I could do a lot of things remote. And so there were a few things I was doing in person at the school, and then also being able to do that online. I'm not suggesting that anybody decide to do 10 internships in college, because it was a lot, but it gave me just that head, you know, diving right into the deep end, the baptism by fire almost. And with that, I was able to succeed and fail in environments that I was allowed to do that. Something I recognize bringing in interns, and I actually just had one that I totally onboarded completely by myself with the state. And it was new for our particular department. And so I had to kind of come up with her curriculum by scratch for the first 2 months she was there, because of the, you know, the staffing situation that we were in. And the biggest thing I kind of went to the brass tacks with her about things was like, you know, at the end of the day, you have to have the confidence that you can articulate your strategies and your thoughts, because you could have the best things going on in your head, and if you cannot get them out on paper in a way that folks are not only going to be able to understand, but then relate to, and in that relation, they can then kind of take that back with them and actually, you know, understand either A, what you're saying, or B, you know, if you're a student and you have no idea what's going on in a class, or you feel really way in over your head with an internship, having the ability to articulate that of where you're confused or where, you know, what's missing here. It was the simplest stepping stone that really I saw her launch I mean, she immediately was able to come up with a ton of new ideas and present them to me in a way that I was like, you are an intern. This is where you are at. These are your kind of your parameters of creativity. And if you want to use that space, this is the time to do that, because you are allowed to create and succeed and fail in these spaces. That's what they're designed to do. And so it not only mentorship, but in a very realistic way. I mean, at the end of the day, it is so amazing and so helpful to sit and talk to people, but as an intern or as a student or as somebody that, is just getting into the industry, you can, sit there and smile and say, yes, I've got this. I look the part, I'm dressing the part, I don't feel the part. And at the end of the day, a lot of times you don't realize it, but that does bleed into what you're doing. And so I think just starting from basics of, this is exactly the realistic expectations, or these are areas that I, struggled in, and kind of breaking down that just the brass tacks and laying just a solid foundation to be able to build off of, I think was probably the most helpful for me as an intern, but then also on the other side of it, coaching interns is definitely, I saw so much success with that.
I don't have anything of any more value than what Courtney, Corinne, and Holly just said, but I will echo the plug for the Speakers Bureau. And I know you asked for answers other than guest speakers, but I do that at every opportunity. I say yes to every opportunity that I have to speak to students, and it's more than just it's more than just that one session, that 1 hour or a half hour. I mean, they all have my contact information. I correspond with some of these folks regularly, so yeah, it's a small thing, but it's what I do, and yeah, so there you go. I think if more people did it, we'd be in better shape.
I think one more addition to that is that, when the guest speaker says at the end of the presentation, I'd love to, continue the conversation if you have questions. We really mean that. We really do want that relationship. So encouraging your students to have a little courage and to reach out is really great.
Thank you. I know I enjoy leveraging my partnerships with alumni and with people in Utah by having my advisory board and having fundraising. And I leverage a lot of professionals to talk about my curriculum and internship placements and opportunities that have helped grow my program at Utah State University. To transition to another topic, we've touched a little bit on technical skills, but in your experience, what technical skills are most lacking in recent graduates or interns? And how can academic programs maybe address this gap? Do you see any gaps that we could think about addressing?
I'm surprised that Jason Ellis doesn't go, I know what Holly's gonna say. Not because
Your
of
show,
K-State.
not mine, Holly.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is across the board, and any graduates not every graduate, but they need to be able to write, and they need to be able to write well. And it doesn't matter if you're social media or video, you've got to write video scripts. You've got to, I mean, I think writing teaches so many more things beyond just the ability to write, but to, follow consistency from beginning to end, to attention to detail. All those things are so very important. And I know that because when I graduated, we didn't have all these other things that we also needed to know how to do. But I think it's just so important. And I find that we are graduating some graduates that can't do it. And that seems sad, I guess. And so I guess I would just put a plug in for requiring that news and feature writing class, or whatever it may be, many, it's almost like they need a writing class every semester. If I'd love that, if we could get graduates that had that. So
I see a horrifying, I knew Holly and I would agree on this. I see a
we're
horrifying,
old. We're old.
yeah, horrifying lack of understanding that, that good writing has, or at least it should have all the qualities of good music. I mean, it should have rhythm and meter and arrangement. It should have a good hook. It should not be, just a recitation of, it shouldn't be just a recitation of facts. Otherwise, 80% of pop music would be, she broke up with me and now I'm sad. So very much echo Holly's sentiment there about writing.
To
Yep.
piggyback off of both Holly and David there, one thing that I'm really grateful for is the fact that I learned how to write perfectly under intense pressure. The journalism program at Utah State University is rigorous, but it's fantastic for that reason. I cannot tell you how many times I fell back on my subconscious training when in a very stressful situation. During the Trump administration, I was White House correspondent, and I was in front of the White House with all of these other national reporters that were a very, very different skill set than me. I felt very underqualified and a lot of imposter syndrome there, which is hilarious because DC is run by 20 to 30-year-olds. But it was amazing that I was able to get through the situations that I got through, because when you're right there in the face of this is real, this is happening, I'm a big girl now, I can't really mess this up. Being on national TV obviously adds a little layer of stress to that. But I was in that moment so thankful for the tears that I used to shed in college, being like, I can't get this right. I can't make my professors happy. What am I going to do? I cannot tell you how many times I have been so thankful for that. The little tiny mistakes, they were caught and they were always consistently and fairly corrected. And having that opportunity to fail and succeed in the space of being a student was I can't tell you how immensely beneficial it was to my career, even in just confidence, because being able to go forth and do whatever you want, for me, is particularly ag reporting. I loved broadcast, so radio, TV, but now I'm doing a lot of print writing too. Being able to, all right, I have a problem, I have a time crunch here, and how can I, articulately, be able to tell people and communicate to folks what I am really trying to say. And I think that goes just kind of a 30,000-foot view. Agriculture in general is so misunderstood because of that notorious gap between producer and consumer. And, ever since I was in high school, it's been, how do we fix this? How do we merge this gap? And at the end of the day, it's, a lot of people, if you're so focused on the ag circle, you kind of, start talking in the terminology and talking in ways that, because you're around other ag folks, it's almost like a sub language where, others from, outside the industry, you could say, really don't understand. And when they don't understand, a lot of times folks don't want to go and ask questions and follow up. If they don't understand it, they're going to shut down. They're going to put that wall up, and they don't want to talk about it anymore, or they're not going to ingest anything that you're giving to them at all. And so I think one of the biggest things is been able to write and be able to articulate my thoughts and be able to take a big old, the crop progress report or whatever, all of these numbers, whether I'm reporting on markets and stuff, and be able to digest that for your, basic consumer, and be able to achieve that larger goal of merging that big gap between the producer and consumer.
Yeah, so I definitely would re-emphasize the writing piece and understanding different types of writing for different media. You know, rather than just going on about that piece, because I'm totally, we need some good basic foundations on writing. And I like, David, that you mentioned the music of it. The writing needs to be concise, clear, specific, but it also needs to be engaging. But a few other things that I have heard from people is that students aren't comfortable doing interviews. So how to ask good questions, how to put an interview, like a person you're interviewing at ease, how to do phone interviews, especially. I can say for myself, I don't love calling people on the phone, but that's what I do every day for most of my interviews. And just kind of that basic phone etiquette, how to leave a message, you know, some of those types of things.
Okay. As I ask these questions, if you have thoughts or things that you would like me to ask, please add them to the chat, and then I'll incorporate those questions in. One thing I wanted to talk about is how many of us encourage internships, or we require an internship for graduation. What advice would you give faculty and graduate students to ensure that our students not only secure internships, but they're succeeding and making meaningful contributions during that internship?
I can hop in really quick. Oh, sorry. Is that all right? Okay. I heard a little ding, so I wasn't sure. But I think the biggest thing, and this is just from personal experience, I remember when I was in college, and especially at Utah State University, there were a lot of you know, in the ag science and ag communication space, because I was kind of taking a bunch of electives all over the place in ag. I kept running into these same kinds of large internship programs that I kind of looked at and I was like, that just doesn't feel like me. Am I in the wrong place? I don't want to go to, you know, for instance, it was like, I remember one time it was the Smithfield pork, huge, awesome, you know, program that they had, and they would pull people in to work for the summer or whatever. And I remember thinking, okay, I can do that. I mean, I grew up on a farm. I grew up raising all kinds of livestock. I can do that. But it wasn't really where my heart was. I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk about agriculture. And I loved radio. And I loved being able to, you know, I can talk in a microphone over the radio waves, and whoever wants to hear me, they can turn it up, and whoever doesn't, they can turn it off. You know, I love that. And so what I did is I actually ended up between my freshman and sophomore year moving back home to California, and it was a country radio station I'd listened to my entire life. And I sent him an email and I said, hey, I see on your website you don't have any internship programs. Is this something you guys would be willing to change? And could I potentially do an internship this summer, or shadow? Could I shadow you for an event? And they emailed me back and said, yeah, sure. We don't have an internship program, but you know, we can make one and work with you on curriculum and make sure we get all that. And I ended up getting class courses for it. And so I think encouraging students to walk into a room and not just be entirely influenced by the choices that are in front of them, but also remember to tell them, you know what's in your heart, you know what you're best at. So get a little creative. I mean, you see larger you know, companies be able to pump out a ton of internships and offer a ton of internships, whereas also as amazingly beneficial as that is, there's a small radio station probably back in a hometown that at least would love to come and have you at least shadow. If they don't have the opportunity to do a full internship, can I shadow you? And I mean, I think anybody in the ag space they're naturally, you know, leaders and natural teachers, and they want to share what they know. And so encouraging your students to be able to walk into a room and don't leave everything you've ever known at the door. Don't leave your personality at the door. You know, it's really easy to look at a system or an industry and just cut off pieces of yourself so that you fit in. I mean, I've done that before, and it just, man, it wasn't very, it didn't, you know, putter my heart or anything, didn't get my brain going. I was just getting through the day and being able to just achieve what was right in front of me. But bigger picture, I wasn't actually gaining any like internal confidence that I had something productive and positive to give to the industry. And so I think that's just one thing, is you don't necessarily have to go out and get, the huge, large internships. Apply for them, please, if that feels good to you. But, just don't forget to also encourage your students to bring their personality and bring what they have to offer to the table and help them fine tune that, rather than kind of make a cut out, puzzle piece that necessarily fits in a certain part of the industry. You never know. You could be perfect for another part of the industry that is desperately lacking your skills. So
Go ahead. You go, Courtney.
So, what can make a student successful at an intern application? What most professionals I've talked to have said is we want to see their work. So you as professors being able to give them opportunities to, produce something that's real world quality, giving them that real world experience, and also students should not underestimate the value of volunteer work. Communications fits into almost every organization, every class. So, I know students are, in my experience, I was paying my way through college. So I was trying to, pay the bills. And so I always tried to have a job that paid me money, but I also tried to make room in my schedule to have a volunteer opportunity if that came up, and that was going to help me build toward my professional goals. So basically anything they can do to get real world experience. And then I would also say that those soft skills like, organization and dependability, doing what you say you're going to do in your email, making every email an opportunity to present yourself professionally. And then also, we're storytellers. So being able to tell your own story about why you're interested in ag communications and what your commitment is to the industry, that's what's going to get your foot in the door. And then beyond that, being open and flexible and willing to do the job and to be observant and to understand that you're going into this internship or this new job, not as the expert. You're going to learn and observe and to do what you can. So be open and dependable and adaptable and all of those things.
I think that what I could add to what they've both said ahead of me is I think we are hiring people that are creative types typically, right? They're writers, they're photographers, they're videographers, they're creative types. If your first foot in the door, which is a resume or letter or website, is not creative, I probably am not going to consider one internship that says my name is Holly Martin as the lead. So I think as communications professionals, we can break some of those rules that maybe have been drilled into people's heads about having a white paper with your name across the top or whatever. I mean, I don't want it to be crazy, but I do want their personality to shine through. And I would say in today's world, for the people that are applying for jobs at the Angus Association communications departments have to have a website. I mean, they have to have a portfolio site, and amazingly, there's a lot of people, and it is kind of consistent by university, that some universities must really help and encourage their students to do that, and others don't. And I think that's pretty basic at this point and pretty minimal to get a job in my kind of a team. That might not be this across the board, but to work for my kind of team it is. So
Thank you. We have probably time for one more question, and I wanted to share one from our audience. You have discussed students' use of AI as a key need. To what extent are you acknowledging use of AI in your work? And what are the ethical boundaries of transparency that we need to integrate with these tools?
Well, I think we used it the other day. Communication specialist and I were working on something specific, and we needed to kind of think through it. Like, if we try to summarize this or try to come up with the key points, what would it be? And through story branding, right? And shout out to K-State. They have what they call AI librarians that came to our communications team meeting here in May and really helped us try to use some of the tools that exist. We asked lots of people to speak, and we know it's so developing that lots of times it feels like professors or people want to be the experts in something, and because it's such a new developing topic, it felt like nobody wanted to talk about it because they knew that it was changing and they weren't the experts. But these people really embraced it and was like, we're learning together. Like, we're going to learn something from you while we're at this meeting, et cetera. And so I think that I don't really know that this addresses the question, but embracing it and trying to figure it out together. I feel like we're sort of an ag communications industry in flux at the moment about AI, and nobody has really taken the lead to help us provide those guidelines and those bumpers and those ethical boundaries. And so, whether it's this group or this group in combination with Ag Communicators Network and Livestock Publications Council and whoever it might be, I think we ought to try to address that together.
To
Yeah,
echo, oh, sorry, Courtney, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know University of Nebraska is going to be presenting at our upcoming fall workshop. And it sounds like they've been doing some work. So I'm really excited to hear about that, because I think that's a question we have too. What are the boundaries? What should the boundaries be? But for my personal, I sign contracts that say I do not use AI in my writing because they are paying me to produce a creative, well-researched piece of my own brain. So, I mean, my uses of AI is pretty much Otter AI to help me transcribe my interviews more quickly. And I do really like that. And I've noticed they've started putting a thing out there where you can ask questions of your interview and it'll regurgitate back an answer based on your interview. I'm not exactly sure how solid that is. I haven't played with it too much, but that's, an area that might help me at least remember, oh, hey, they talked about this topic in this part of the interview transcript. And then, yeah, no, that's pretty much how I use AI at this point. I've used it to try to generate, new words, but I really like the website wordhippo.com, which is a synonym searching website. I use that a ton just to find different words for what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I hit the one I was thinking of but couldn't think of. So.
And I just want to jump in here and say, so many times the conversation lately of AI has come up. The just sentiment around it is AI is bad. AI is like, don't do that. It's wrong. It's going to give you wrong answers. And of course it will. Our brains do that too. And so not to say that those are synonymous, but I think the more this industry just in general really avoids AI, kind of like the plague, the more we are going to be further behind the curve. And when I mean further is I mean the ag industry just in general, when it comes to communicating and really connecting with the public, it's not there. It's been an issue, you know, for forever. And so my thing is that if I'm scared of something and if I don't know something, I'm going to dive headfirst into it, and I'm going to figure out how I can use that as an advantage to me instead of a disadvantage or a tool that I can't use, but everybody else around me is using, but I'm not able to use it because I'm too scared to use it, or I don't know how to use it. And so I think the culture around AI probably needs to just be a little bit more like, all right, this is happening because it is. And how do we not get left behind on it? And how do we integrate it? Because every company is doing it right now. And this is not to say that we should promote AI, you know, doing your job for you, or doing creative work for you. You know, as Courtney mentions, the contracts with you know, and I'm not sure what the parameters of that is, but you know, if it comes to photography or graphic design or logo design or video editing, I use Transcribe. It's AI, you know, it's actually an Apple app. I don't think, I think only Apple uses it, but Otter AI is also a similar one. That is artificial intelligence that's going through and that is amazing, because what it's doing is it's doing the exact same job that I would do, except for a lot faster. And so while it's doing that, I can go do other things. And so in the you know, instance of no, we don't need to be doing AI, we're against AI, you know, everybody's going to have their opinion on it, but at the end of the day, it's happening, and it's happening now. And I don't think the ag industry can afford to kind of sit back and say, well, because we're not familiar with it and because we don't know how to use it, we're not going to use it. And we're also going to prevent other people from using it, because it's, I just think it's further secluding the industry that's already kind of a little bit secluded. And what Holly was saying earlier about being able to, you know, look at it, panel, you know, or group, or even if you don't have an organized, you know, group, get a couple of your coworkers, you know, colleagues together and say, all right, what's one thing we can research about AI that we can utilize that is simple and easy and not necessarily doing the spirit of the job for us, but rather helping us do small tasks that anybody could really be trained to do. And so I just think in general, the attitude towards AI really should be not, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to fight it. It should be, I don't know what that is, I'm going to dive headfirst into it and figure out what makes it tick and how I can utilize that in my space. Because I mean, it's happening, and just the industry just cannot afford to be left behind on something like that.
If anyone has connections with DTN, or you want to talk more about this, DTN's doing a lot with AI. I would say they're probably the ones I hear about most that, yeah, I would say they're really diving in and exploring uses for it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I want to take a moment and just thank our panelists for being here with us today. I hope that everyone walked away with a few pieces of information they can take back to their own programs and to our students as we continue to mentor them. But I wanted to turn it over to Ricky to make sure that we have time for any announcements from our attendees, and just to make sure we know what is our next webinar. So thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciated being able to organize this and hope that you found it helpful.
Great. Thank you all very much. I appreciate that. And thank you, Kelsey, for organizing the group. I see virtual hand clapping around. That's great. So are there any questions, updates people have for things going on at your universities? Anything you'd like to share with the group overall?
I'll jump in. We at Iowa State are currently in the process of kind of like trying to reevaluate how we're doing things like course fees, and in particular, how we're going to pay for or get students access to Adobe Creative Suite. We have a lot of ideas, but we're curious what other people do. So if you have any insights, how your university handles course fees for different classes that require things like Creative Suite, how you get students access for it, whether it's them individually paying for it or through course fees or whatever. If you could send me an email, my email should be my display name, but it's arockers@iastate.edu. I would love to hear how you are handling this, because this is something that we're having some ongoing conversations about as we try to figure this out for us. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'll just give a quick plug. Ricky sent out an email earlier today. We've got a new multi-state project that's been approved through the AES system, the multi-state system. And we're going to have a first meeting the Saturday before NACS starts off on Sunday in Irving, Texas. This is not the project that Jeff Miller and his team from Arkansas is leading. They are different projects with different focus, different purpose, different objectives, different teams. They're not competing. When I've had people ask about why do you need two SciComm projects, my question is, why do you need two wheat projects and why do you need two beef projects? So, you know, they're just because it's a discipline doesn't mean that you can wrap it all up into one project. So, so we're gonna meet for a couple hours on that Saturday afternoon in Irving. So,
See a hand up over there, Taylor.
Howdy, everybody. Just a quick thing, since I have most of the advisors for national or for ACT on here, the national ACT dues are coming this week. They're due October 31. We have 0 rosters uploaded as of right now, which I know is not the case. So if you guys don't mind uploading those, I also have an email going out this afternoon with some updates that have been going out to your students the last couple of months, but I think it's nice to have them in one place for you guys. So just look for that email and get your rosters uploaded pretty please, and thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Taylor. Anybody else?
It is not program specific, but the paper reviews for NACS have gone out. So if you have gotten that, be slowly working on them, please. If you see an issue with one, also please let me know. If you see an issue of a conflict of interest, I did my best to make sure that we are not reviewing work that we know of other people's, but if there is an issue, please reach out to me with enough time so I can reassign and get us our reviews back in time. Awesome. Thanks.
Perfect. Anybody else? If not, next month we will be not at the same day or day of the month. Usually we do this on the 4th Monday of the month. Next month, because of Thanksgiving, we're going to be on the 3rd Monday due to the Thanksgiving holiday that week. So that'll be November the 18th at 3 o'clock Eastern time. We'll have Lacey Roberts Hill, Whitney Stone, Jacqueline Anijay, and Colby Silbert discussing developing resources for working with undergraduate researchers. So it should be a great presentation next month on November the 18th. We'll get more word out to everybody before then. If not, have a great day and hope to see everybody back in just a few weeks. Thanks. Bye.